This story is titled, After My Parents Asked Me to Give My Brother a Job at My Company and I Paid Him a Nice Advance, they organized a celebration party to humiliate me. So I terminated him and stopped all contact. Hey Reddit, my name is Marcus, and I'm 29 years old. I'm not really the type to post much online, but something happened recently that's been sitting heavy on me. I figured maybe writing it all out would help me process everything, so here goes nothing. I'm based in Tampa, where I run a digital marketing agency. The whole thing started from absolutely nothing. Just me with an overheating laptop that sounded like a jet engine every time I opened more than 3 browser tabs. Back then, I had maybe 3 clients who paid me barely enough to cover my rent each month. I was essentially living paycheck to paycheck, wondering if I'd made a huge mistake trying to start my own business. Fast forward to today, and we've got a team of over 100 people working for us. We have a decent office space, real contracts with established companies, and honestly, we're doing pretty well for ourselves. You'd think my parents would be proud of what I've accomplished, or at least acknowledge that I didn't crash and burn like they probably expected me to. But nope. To them, I'm still just that guy who plays on his laptop all day. They act like I'm running some kind of fantasy football league instead of an actual company that employs people and generates real revenue, which, honestly, would still be fine if they didn't treat me like a family embarrassment every chance they get. Now let me give you a little context about my younger brother Tyler, who's 26. He's somehow managed to remain the golden child in my parents' eyes, despite barely keeping a job for more than a year at a time. This guy has done everything from sales consultant, to brand ambassador, to marketing strategist. All fancy titles for positions that never seem to last very long. But the moment he puts on a button-up shirt and updates his LinkedIn profile with some new corporate buzzwords, my parents start acting like he's the next Steve Jobs. Meanwhile, I could be in the middle of closing a 6-figure deal that would secure jobs for my entire team, and my parents would still give me that classic, "That's nice, Marcus" response. It's like they've already decided that whatever Tyler does is inherently more impressive than anything I could accomplish. Anyway, Tyler's team apparently hit 150% of their target this month. Yeah, okay, good for him, I guess. Fast forward to a few months ago when Tyler lost his job again. Something about company restructuring, but honestly, we all know what that usually means when it comes to Tyler's employment history. My mom called me right after it happened, asking if I could help Tyler out for a bit. I knew exactly where that conversation was heading before she even finished her sentence. She didn't actually say the word hire, but it was painfully obvious what she wanted. She was hoping I could bring Tyler into my company and give him a fresh start. And here's the thing that makes me question my own judgment. I actually went along with it. I know, I'm probably the idiot in this situation. But I thought maybe if I gave him a real shot at something meaningful, he'd finally rise to the occasion. Plus, I figured if I'm always being called selfish and cold by my family, maybe this would prove once and for all that I'm not the heartless, success-obsessed person they seem to think I am. So I gave the go-ahead to our HR department. I didn't even interview Tyler myself because I wanted everything to be handled professionally and fairly. I let my team follow our standard hiring procedure, just like we would for any other candidate. He ended up getting hired for an entry-level marketing support role at our Tampa office. It wasn't anything crazy or overwhelming, just enough responsibility for him to learn the ropes and grow within the company, without having to carry any major accounts or handle high-pressure situations. I thought it was the perfect opportunity for him to prove himself in a supportive environment. 3 weeks later, I'm scrolling through Instagram during my lunch break. Yeah, I know. Doom scrolling isn't exactly productive, but whatever. That's when I see this post from Tyler that made my blood run cold. It's a big group shot with balloons everywhere, and there's a banner in the background that clearly says, "Welcome to the team, Tyler." There's even a cake with our company logo perfectly recreated in frosting. My parents are front and center, smiling like they just won the lottery. There are cousins, family, friends, and basically everyone you could think of, except for one glaring omission. Me. I wasn't even invited to the damn party. I sat there blinking at my phone screen for what felt like a solid minute, trying to process what I was seeing. This is my company. This is my team. They used my office's event room, displayed my logo, and probably charged everything to our company credit card for the catering. And I didn't even get so much as a text message letting me know it was happening. So I called my mom straight up. No passive-aggressive buildup, no beating around the bush. Just a direct, "Hey, why wasn't I invited to Tyler's welcome party?" And she goes all casual about it, like it's the most normal thing in the world. "Oh, Marcus, we figured you were busy. We didn't want to bother you." Didn't want to bother me. Let me get this straight. They didn't want to bother me with a party that I unknowingly paid for, celebrating the hiring of someone I reluctantly agreed to help. The mental gymnastics required for that logic was honestly impressive. I didn't even say anything for a few seconds. I think I literally had to reset my brain like an old router that's been running too long. When I finally found my voice, I asked, "How did you pay for it?" And she goes, "Well, some of the decorations and food came from that help you gave me a couple weeks ago. Things were tight, remember?" Oh, I remembered all right. 3 weeks before this conversation, she had called me saying their heating bill had doubled unexpectedly and they were behind on groceries. She asked me for $2,800 to help them stay afloat during what she described as a temporary rough patch. I wired the money without thinking twice about it. No questions asked, no payment plan discussed. I just did it because that's what you do for family when they're struggling. And apparently, that's where the money went. To fund a celebration party for Tyler that I wasn't even invited to attend. After that phone call, I sat at my desk staring at my computer monitor, just trying to process how casually that information had been delivered to me. No guilt in her voice, no, "Sorry we should have told you." Not even one of those weird nervous laughs people do when they know they've messed up. Just pure matter-of-factness, like it was completely normal behavior. Like that's just what kids are supposed to do. Fun surprise parties they're excluded from. That night, I called my cousin Jessica. She's 28 and lives about 50 minutes away from me. We grew up close together, and honestly, she's more like a sister to me than Tyler has ever been. She knows the whole history, the favoritism, the guilt-tripping, all of it. I sent her the Instagram post and simply said, "Am I being petty? Or is this as messed up as I think it is?" She didn't even wait to text me back. She called me immediately and just said, "Marcus, they used your money to throw a party you weren't invited to. If you don't cut them off after this, I'm going to drive over there and do it myself." She was joking. Kind of. But that conversation was the final straw for me. I opened my banking app and scrolled to the automatic payments I had set up for my parents. Yeah, that's right. I had regular monthly payments going to them, like some kind of subscription service they'd signed me up for without my consent. I canceled every single one of them. No heads up, no dramatic phone call, no lengthy explanation. Just click, click, done. I also created a new label in my phone for both my parents and Tyler. Do not fund. It felt petty in the moment, but also strangely liberating. After I finished cutting off the payments, I sat on my couch, still in my work clothes from that day, just staring at the wall. It wasn't even anger anymore. It was this weird mix of relief and exhaustion. Like I had finally given myself permission to stop playing the role they had written for me. The boring but helpful son who exists primarily to solve their financial problems. And I sure as hell wasn't about to fund Act 2 of their Tyler celebration tour. After I cut the payments off, I figured I'd get some kind of reaction from them. I just didn't expect it to be quite so fast. Literally 3 days later, my mom texted me, "Hi, sweetie. I think something's wrong with the bank transfer. Can you check?" I didn't respond. The next day, I got a voicemail from my dad. "Marcus, this is serious. You can't just stop helping us out. We're counting on that money." That voicemail really did it for me. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Did something happen?" Just straight to the part where I'm apparently a walking bill payment app. No small talk, no human emotions, just pure transactional need. Here's the thing that really gets me. I'm not mad that they needed help. Life is hard, especially for older folks on fixed incomes. What kills me is the way it was always framed. Like it wasn't help I was providing. It was my duty as their son. They never once said thank you without following it up with some kind of backhanded comment. It was always something like, "We're so lucky to have one responsible kid," followed immediately by, "Maybe now you'll do something fun like your brother does." I mean, what exactly is Tyler doing that's so fun? The guy has burned through 6 different jobs in 7 years. At one point, he was selling nutritional supplements online and had the nerve to call himself a health consultant. This is the same dude who ate gas station pizza 5 nights a week and thought intermittent fasting meant skipping breakfast until 11:30 in the morning. But sure, I'm the boring one. I'm the one who doesn't know how to live a little. Let me rewind a bit to show you just how deep this financial nonsense runs. It started small, like these things usually do. A few years ago, my mom called and asked for $350 because their refrigerator had died unexpectedly. I sent the money without thinking twice about it. That's what family does, right? The next time, it was car repairs. Then it was a root canal that wasn't covered by their dental insurance. Then there was a small loan to help Tyler out after he decided to invest in cryptocurrency and promptly lost $1,900 on some sketchy app he downloaded from a pop-up ad. Because of course he did. At first, it actually felt good to be able to help them. I thought, all right, they're finally seeing me as the stable one, the reliable son they can count on. But that appreciation faded real fast. After a while, the requests started coming with this weird tone. Less asking, more assuming. Hey Marcus, can you send $900 by Friday? We're going to be short this month. We figured you could spot us $300 for the insurance thing, since you're doing well. Tyler needs help with rent again. He's just getting back on his feet. It was always some vague emergency that needed immediate attention. No discussion of repayment, no keeping track of the amounts, just guilt served on a silver platter with a side of family obligation. Meanwhile, I'm over here juggling contracts, running a team, paying my employees, and working 65-hour weeks to keep everything afloat. And they're throwing parties with cake that has my company logo on it, using money I sent them for groceries and heating bills. I talked to Jessica again after the texts and voicemails started piling up. She came over that weekend with takeout and sat on my couch like she was ready for war. Jessica doesn't mess around when it comes to family drama. She's been dealing with her own nonsense from her mom's side of the family, so she gets it. She asked, "So what's the next move?" I told her, "Nothing. I'm not replying. They'll figure it out eventually." She nodded, but gave me that look. The one that says they're not going to stop until you draw a line in cement, not just chalk. And she was absolutely right. On Tuesday, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I don't usually answer random numbers, but I was in a surprisingly good mood that day and figured it might be a potential client or someone important for business. Nope. It was my dad calling from some burner phone or maybe his buddy's number or who knows what. "Marcus," he said, all serious and authoritative. "I know you're angry about something, but that doesn't mean you can just cut us off like this." I kept my voice as flat and emotionless as possible. "Dad, I'm not angry. I'm just done being used." He tried to laugh it off like the word used was too harsh or dramatic for the situation. "Come on, it's not like that. We're family. We help each other out." I replied, "When's the last time you helped me with anything?" He went silent for a moment, then tried to pivot the conversation entirely. "This isn't about keeping score, Marcus." Exactly. That's the problem right there. They never kept score because in their eyes, I never added any points to the board. I just filled in the blanks when they needed something, while Tyler got to be the MVP of a game he never even finished playing. After that call, I blocked that number too, but of course, they didn't just give up. They started calling Jessica next like I wouldn't find out about it or something. She told them politely at first that she wasn't getting involved in family drama. But then my mom sent her this whole long message about how I'm going down a cold path and pushing the family away when all they've ever done is love and support me. Jessica completely snapped. She screenshotted the message, sent it to me, and said, "I'm done with them too. This isn't a family. It's a subscription service with no cancel button." That actually made me laugh out loud. She always knows how to say things in a way that hits hard but still makes you smile. The worst part is, deep down, I always knew it would eventually come to this. There's only so long you can carry people who don't want to walk on their own. And it's not like they were even trying, not even a little bit. The same week they started panicking about the canceled payments, Tyler posted a selfie from some rooftop bar with the caption, "Success is mindset." He tagged a clothing brand that definitely didn't sponsor him and replied to his own post with fire emojis. I showed Jessica the post, and she said, "This man has been employed for 11 days and already thinks he's the CEO of lifestyle." Here's the thing about Tyler. He didn't even do his job right. And I'm not saying that in a "he made a couple of mistakes" way. I mean, he literally didn't do the job he was hired for. It was a basic support role in the marketing department. Nothing flashy, just groundwork stuff. His responsibilities included following up on warm leads, keeping CRM notes updated, joining the weekly team calls, and handing off anything serious to the account managers. That's it. It was the kind of role you give someone fresh out of college who needs to get their feet wet in the industry. I had given him the easiest possible path into the company. I even made sure he got assigned to a decent team lead who's known for being chill and helpful with new employees. But from day one, Tyler acted like the entire job was beneath him. He showed up late like it was completely normal. He didn't say a word during meetings, skipped follow-ups with potential clients, and left early without logging any of his activities. There were full days where nobody on his team could reach him. He'd send a message saying working remote today, and then post a gym mirror selfie during core office hours. I had specifically told Eric, his manager, to treat Tyler exactly like any other employee. Document everything. Send the standard warnings and don't give him a pass just because we share DNA. Eric followed protocol to the letter. Tyler ignored the first two warnings completely. On the third one, he actually argued with a client via email and told them they were being too demanding for expecting basic follow-through on their account. That's when I knew I had to make a decision. Not as his brother, not even as a son trying to keep family peace, but as the guy responsible for running this company. Tyler was about to get fired, and I already knew exactly what kind of tantrum was coming. So the day finally came. I called HR that morning and told Valerie, our department head, "Today's the day. He's got to go." She already knew this was coming. Tyler's manager had forwarded yet another flagged interaction to her. This time, Tyler had completely missed a client onboarding call. When they emailed to reschedule, he replied 6 hours later with, "My bad, got swamped LOL." Swamped doing what? The guy hadn't updated a single CRM task in 3 weeks. I told Valerie to proceed exactly like it was any other employee termination. We have protocols for this kind of thing. 2 write-ups, final warning, then termination. He had already burned through the first 2 stages, and the final warning was just waiting for my official sign-off. I signed the paperwork before I even finished my morning coffee. Valerie scheduled a 4:30 p.m. meeting with Tyler. It's standard procedure, gives enough time for the workday to be mostly finished, but doesn't leave the employees sitting in the office all day stewing in anxiety about what's coming. At 4:37, I got a Slack ping from Valerie. Meeting ended. She added that Tyler didn't take it well and left the building without saying anything to anyone. All right, cool. Professional, clean, done. Except it wasn't done. Not even close. At 4:52 p.m., I got a call. Caller ID. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. 3 minutes later, my dad called. Ignored that one too. By 5 p.m., my phone was blowing up like I had just committed some kind of felony. Missed calls, voicemails, and text messages were stacking up one after another. I finally opened one of the texts from my mom. "How could you? Tyler is crushed. You humiliated him in front of everyone." Another one from my dad. "You better fix this before it gets ugly. We're coming to talk to you in person." That last line made me pause. I read it 4 times. "We're coming to talk to you in person." I looked at the time, 5:04 p.m. My office is exactly 22 minutes from their house, assuming normal traffic. At exactly 5:26 p.m., my receptionist Ellie called my extension. "Hey Marcus, your parents are here, and Tyler." I walked out to the front lobby myself. I didn't want to drag building security into this mess unless I absolutely had to. When I got there, they were already positioned like they were ready for battle. My dad was pacing back and forth, my mom had her arms crossed in that classic disappointed parent pose, and Tyler was slumped into one of our waiting chairs like he was at a dentist's office for a root canal he didn't want. I didn't even bother with pleasantries. "This isn't the place for this. You need to leave." My dad stepped forward, getting into what I can only describe as his authority figure stance. "Not until we talk about what you did." "What I did," I said, keeping my voice level, "was hold your son to the same standard as every other employee. He didn't do his job, he got written up, he didn't fix the problems, so he got fired. End of story." My mom jumped in, her voice getting louder. "You didn't have to actually go through with it, Marcus. You could have warned him first. You could have talked to us." I blinked at her in disbelief. "Why would I talk to you about a company decision? You don't work here, and clearly neither should he." Tyler finally stood up from his chair, shaking his head with this look of complete disbelief on his face. "You think you're such a big deal, huh? Just because you got lucky with some code and a few clients?" I actually laughed out loud at that. "Lucky? I was sleeping in a shared office space and eating peanut butter sandwiches for 3 years straight while you were posting selfies with energy drinks in your shared apartment." That's when Tyler completely lost it. He stormed up to me, jabbing his finger right in my face. "You think you're better than me? That you can just throw me away like I'm nothing?" "No," I said, keeping my voice as calm as possible while people were starting to gather around us. "I think you acted like you were nothing, and now you're dealing with the results." I could see my staff members pretending not to look while very obviously listening to every word. This was exactly the kind of scene I had hoped to avoid, but here we were. I turned to address my parents directly. "You're making a scene in my office. Either you leave right now, or I'm calling security." My dad's jaw clenched tight. "You're going to kick us out of your life just like that?" "You've been kicking me out of your life since before this company even had a logo," I replied. "You just didn't notice because I was still wiring you money every month." Tyler muttered something under his breath that I didn't catch, and honestly, I didn't care to ask him to repeat it. At that point, I was done with the whole conversation. I pointed directly toward the exit. "I'm serious. Leave. You're embarrassing yourselves and you're disrupting my workplace." They finally left, but not before my mom gave me that classic disappointed parent look. The one that's supposed to make you feel like you've let down the entire family lineage. Like I was the one who had somehow failed them in this situation. I watched them walk out through the glass doors, and it felt like someone had finally opened a window in my brain that had been sealed shut for years. Later that night, I got a voice message from my dad. One sentence delivered with maximum dramatic effect. "You're going to regret doing this to your own family." Yeah, that line again. That same tired guilt trip they've always used to hang over my head. Like some invisible debt I never agreed to take on. I sat there listening to the message, then deleted it without a second thought. The next morning, I walked into the office and it was back to business as usual. Valerie gave me a subtle nod when I passed her desk. Kind of a silent, "You okay?" moment. I just nodded back and kept walking. Around noon, Jessica texted me, "Heard the family meltdown made it all the way to your office. You good?" I replied, "Yep. Finally burned the bridge they've been trying to walk across for years." She responded with a string of fire emojis and a gif of a guy dramatically blowing up a bridge. I needed that laugh. The rest of the week was surprisingly quiet. No phone calls, no text messages, no drama. It was like they were regrouping somewhere, waiting for their next dramatic entrance. Sure enough, Sunday rolled around. It was 7:15 p.m., and I had just finished meal prepping for the week. I was halfway through cleaning up the kitchen when someone rang my doorbell. I checked the security camera feed on my phone, and guess who was standing on my doorstep? All three of them. Again. I opened the door because I didn't want them banging and yelling loud enough for my neighbors to start posting complaints on Nextdoor about the crazy family drama happening in their peaceful neighborhood. My dad started talking first, putting on his most reasonable voice. "Marcus, we didn't come here to argue with you. We came because we're hurting and we need your help," my mom added, nodding like they had rehearsed this tag team approach. Tyler stayed quiet during this opening pitch, but he had that same tired, defeated look on his face. Like the world owed him a break and he couldn't understand why it wasn't being delivered. Then my dad delivered what was clearly the real reason for their visit. "We need some money to stay afloat, just for a couple of months until things get better." I stood in my doorway with my arms crossed. "How much?" My mom glanced at my dad, then back at me. $5,500. I took a deep breath and gave them the most direct answer I could manage. "No." They both blinked at me like I had just spoken in a foreign language. My dad looked genuinely confused. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, you're not getting another dollar from me," I said clearly. "This isn't a loan, it's not temporary help. It's done. Finished." My mom's voice cracked slightly. "Marcus," I cut her off before she could launch into another guilt speech. "You used my money to throw a party I wasn't invited to. You let Tyler mess around at my company for weeks, then blamed me when I held him to the same standards as everyone else. And now you're standing on my doorstep asking for more money like nothing happened." My dad stepped closer to the door, and his tone shifted to something more threatening. "Don't make us your enemies, Marcus." I stepped back and started to close the door. "You did that all on your own." Before the door shut completely, I added, "If you show up here again uninvited, I will get the law involved." I locked the door, walked back to my kitchen table, and sat down to eat my reheated chicken like it was victory steak. After that confrontation, I figured I had finally bought myself some peace. Like, all right, you made your dramatic entrances, delivered your dramatic lines. Now go be dramatic somewhere else and leave me alone. But no, that would have required a level of self-awareness that I honestly don't think any of them possess. The next few days were actually quiet, though. Eerily quiet. No text messages, no calls from blocked numbers, no fake emergencies, just complete silence. Jessica and I met up for coffee that Friday afternoon. We sat outside because Tampa was having one of those rare, perfect spring days where the wind feels like it was scripted by a movie director. She brought a box of pastries because, in her words, real support means snacks. "So," she asked, tearing into a croissant like it owed her money, "are they gone for good, or is this just the intermission between acts?" I smirked. Feels like a break between acts. They're probably somewhere regrouping, planning their next guilt monologue. She nodded knowingly. "Well, if they try anything else, you've got backup. I've got receipts and I'm not afraid to forward them to the whole extended family group chat." Jessica and I have this running joke about turning this whole mess into a PowerPoint presentation. The title slide would be, "Why Marcus is Not Your Wallet, a Timeline." We could include charts, graphs, maybe even a cost-benefit analysis of their ridiculous behavior. By Saturday morning, I knew that Act 2 had officially begun. Valerie called me, which was already unusual since she rarely contacts anyone on weekends unless something is literally on fire. I picked up the phone and heard her say, "Sorry to bother you on your weekend, but I just got an email from someone named Angela Benton." I froze for a second. "That's my mom's full name." "Yeah, I figured as much," Valerie continued. She emailed our HR department directly, asking about a severance review for Tyler and if we could correct the misunderstanding about his termination. And get this, she CC'd you and someone named Jessica on the email. I almost dropped my phone. She CC'd Jessica? This woman, my own mother, is now dragging my cousin into corporate HR email chains? Valerie went on. "I just wanted to confirm how you want me to handle this before I send any kind of response." I told her, "Keep it short, polite, and completely professional. Standard denial, and please remove Jessica from the CC thread. She's not company staff, she's just extremely patient with my family's nonsense." Valerie actually chuckled at that. Got it. The email she ended up sending back was an absolute masterpiece of professional HR language. Straight to the point, corporate tone on full blast. At this time, there are no eligibility factors that warrant severance. All employee transitions follow standard protocol based on performance and conduct. Thank you. Complete mic drop. Jessica texted me 12 minutes later. "Why is your mom dragging me into corporate HR email chains like I'm the VP of Logic?" I didn't even know how to respond to that level of absurdity. But here's the best part. That was only phase 1 of their latest campaign. On Monday morning, I walked into my office to find a package sitting on my desk. No shipping label, no sender address, just my name written in black marker across a plain brown envelope. I opened it cautiously because, let's be real, my parents showing up at my house unannounced didn't exactly scream healthy boundaries to me. Inside was a printed photograph of the family party, the same one from the Instagram post that I wasn't invited to. It was professionally framed, and taped to the back was a sticky note in my mom's unmistakable handwriting. "You're still part of this family. Don't forget that." I stared at it for a full minute, then called our receptionist. "Hey, can you do me a favor? If anyone from my family shows up here asking for me, just tell them I'm in meetings for the next 12 years. She laughed and said, "Already have a note on your profile about that. That's why she's my favorite employee?" I shoved the framed photo into my desk drawer and got back to work, trying to pretend that receiving mysterious family guilt packages was totally normal workplace behavior. The day went surprisingly well after that. I managed to avoid checking my personal phone for most of the afternoon, but around 5:45, I finally gave in and looked at my messages. 5 voicemails and 3 text messages, all from my dad. First voicemail. "Marcus, this is your father. You're not too big for your family. We still love you, even if you've forgotten how to act like a son." Second voicemail. "This is getting ridiculous. We're not your enemies. Stop trying to punish us for your success." Third voicemail. "If you're not going to help us, just say it directly instead of playing these games." Fourth voicemail. "We'll come by your house again tomorrow." Fifth voicemail. "You can't ignore us forever, Marcus." The text messages were equally charming. "Dad, if you had any respect, you'd pick up your phone. We'll be at your house at 7:30. This behavior is unacceptable, Marcus. Your mother is crying because of you." At this point, I was sitting at my desk, rereading the same client email for 7 minutes straight without absorbing a single word. My shoulders were tight, my jaw felt completely locked, and I hadn't clenched my fist like that since college finals week. I texted Jessica. "They're coming over again tonight." She wrote back instantly. "Want me to show up in camouflage and pretend to be security?" That was tempting, but I had another idea brewing in my head. I called a lawyer friend of mine named Brian. We've worked together on some compliance stuff for my company, and I knew he also handled civil issues and personal legal matters. "Hey," I said when he picked up, "how hard is it to file a no-contact order if your own parents keep showing up at your house uninvited after being told repeatedly not to?" Brian paused for a moment. "You serious about this?" "Dead serious." He said, "If you've got proof, text messages, voicemails, any documented harassment, it's definitely doable, especially if you feel threatened or they won't respect basic boundaries after you've made your wishes clear." "I have everything," I told him. "Screenshots, recordings, the whole 9 yards." We set up an appointment for that evening. When my parents inevitably showed up at my house, I didn't open the door. I didn't respond to their knocking, or the doorbell ringing, or the increasingly aggressive banging. I just watched the whole thing unfold through the security camera feed on my phone. They stood there for a full 12 minutes, alternating between knocking and having what looked like heated discussions among themselves. Tyler kicked one of my potted plants on the way out. It was fake, but it was still a real tantrum from a grown man. The next morning, I met with Brian at his office. I brought everything: printed screenshots of text messages, saved voicemails, documentation of every incident. He looked through it all methodically, nodding slowly like he'd seen this exact pattern play out before. "They're not going to stop," he said after reviewing everything. "This is way more than just a bad family argument. This is a documented pattern of harassment and boundary violations." We filed the paperwork that same week. I didn't tell anyone in my family about it. Not even Jessica, at least not right away. I just wanted one thing in my life to happen, without drama automatically attached to it, like some kind of emotional duct tape holding everything together. The following Friday, I got the official confirmation: temporary no-contact order granted. They were now legally prohibited from showing up at my house, my office, or contacting me directly through any means. It was actually quiet that weekend. Like, weirdly, peacefully quiet. And I absolutely loved every minute of it. I sat on my apartment balcony Sunday night, drinking tea and watching the city lights twinkle below, and thought to myself, so this is what peace feels like. Not a single, "Marcus, we need," or "Marcus, just one more favor." Just me, existing in my own life, not being constantly used as a family subscription service. No refunds, no apologies, and finally, no more pretending they'd ever see me as anything other than a walking financial transaction. I knew the quiet wouldn't last forever. It never does with situations like this. About a week later, I got a text from Jessica that just said, "What did you do?" with a screenshot attached. It was from the extended family group chat, one I had left months ago because it was about 85% photos of Tyler holding a dog he didn't even own. And the rest was my mom forwarding those classic boomer memes about coffee and complaining about kids these days. The message she screenshotted was from my dad, apparently. "Marcus filed legal action against his own family. This is what money does to people." Then my mom chimed in right underneath it. "He used to be kind before that company poisoned him. Poisoned me." Sure, the business that had kept them living comfortably for years was now somehow the villain of their story. Jessica followed up with, "Do you want me to say something in the chat?" I told her, "No, let them spin whatever narrative they want. The people who actually matter already know the truth." My circle was getting smaller, and honestly, I liked it that way. Still, part of me couldn't help but feel this weird ache in my chest. I knew they'd react poorly to the no-contact order. But it still hurt to see your own parents actively framing you as the bad guy because you finally said enough is enough. 3 days later, I got a letter in the mail. Not an email, not a text. An actual printed, folded letter in a white envelope, like it was 1999. No return address, but the handwriting on the front was definitely my mom's distinctive scrawl. Inside were 4 pages of emotional gymnastics that would have impressed an Olympic judge. Page 1 was all about how I'd supposedly changed since becoming successful, and how I was letting outside people like Jessica poison my thinking against my own family. Page 2 was a bullet list. Yes, actual bullet points. Of times they believed they had sacrificed for me. Most of them were laughable. One example: "We bought you a new backpack every school year." Another gem: "Your father drove you to school during winter twice when the bus broke down." Twice. In my entire childhood. Page 3 continued with more of the same. "We supported your dreams when nobody else believed in you." Page 4 was the real closer, the actual goal wrapped in guilt frosting. "If you really cared about this family, you'd drop this legal nonsense and come to the table. Let's talk like we used to. We still believe in you." Funny how people only believe in you when your bank account is healthy and accessible to them. I tossed the letter on my kitchen counter and left it there for 3 days. Not because I didn't want to deal with it, but because I'd finally stopped giving them that kind of power over my emotional state. On the 4th day, I scanned the entire thing into a PDF and sent it to Brian. He replied within the hour. "We'll document this as evidence. Nothing in here technically violates the order since it came through mail, but it proves they're trying to get around the legal boundaries emotionally. Let me know if anything escalates beyond this." And it did escalate. The next week, I had just wrapped up a product roadmap meeting and was heading out of the building when one of our junior staff members, Lauren, stopped me in the hallway. "Hey Marcus, so I think someone from your family tried to get into the building earlier today." I froze mid-step. "What happened exactly?" She pulled out her phone like she was checking her notes. "Security caught them at the front entrance. They said they were your parents and that they needed to see you urgently. They were told you weren't available for visitors and they eventually left. but they were kind of intense about it. I nodded, trying to keep my expression neutral. Thanks for telling me. If they ever show up again, tell security to call me immediately, okay? The second I got home, I was back on the phone with Brian. This time, we filed for a permanent no-contact order. The judge actually expedited the case based on the repeated attempts to contact me at both my residence and my workplace, despite the temporary order already being in place. When the permanent order came through, that was it. They were now legally barred from showing up anywhere near me or trying to contact me through any means whatsoever. I finally had peace on paper, not just hope. But of course, Tyler had to have his dramatic moment too. He posted on LinkedIn, yes, LinkedIn of all places, a status update that read, "Some people climb the ladder and forget who held it steady. Real success isn't about money, it's about loyalty. Never sell out your roots." I sat at my desk and actually laughed out loud. This man, who couldn't send a follow-up email without sounding like a middle schooler texting his friends, was out here acting like some kind of philosophical business icon. He had a whole comment thread going under the post too, with people replying, "Facts, so true," and the ever-classic, "Spoken like a real one." It was like watching someone cosplay as a motivational speaker. Jessica messaged me, "Did he just subtweet you on LinkedIn?" I replied, "Guess he thinks betrayal comes with professional networking benefits." We both agreed it was embarrassing. I didn't respond publicly, didn't even like the post. Though I was very tempted to comment something like, "This you?" with a screenshot of his termination paperwork. But a few days later, karma showed up casually and unannounced, the way it always should. I got a call from someone I used to know who worked at the same small marketing firm that Tyler had just started working for. Apparently, he'd managed to land a junior marketing assistant role somewhere. And, get this, he no-showed a client meeting and blamed it on calendar sync issues. It was 100% his fault, obviously, and they let him go after exactly 12 days on the job. 12 days. I couldn't even be surprised at that point. And suddenly I get this long email in my inbox from Tyler. The subject line read, "Can we talk?" The body of the email said, "I know things have been tense between us lately. I just wanted to say I've been thinking a lot about how things played out with the job situation and everything else. I don't want us to stay on bad terms like this. Maybe we can meet up sometime and just talk. No pressure, just brothers trying to work things out." I didn't respond to the email. Instead, I forwarded it directly to Brian with a note. Evidence of continued contact attempts despite legal order. I didn't even feel angry anymore when I read it. Just tired. Tired of being the only person in this family held to any kind of standard. Tired of carrying people who clearly saw me more as an opportunity than as an actual person who deserved basic respect. The next weekend, Jessica came over with pizza, and we sat on my couch watching old episodes of Kitchen Nightmares. At one point during a particularly brutal Gordon Ramsay rant, she looked over at me and asked, "Do you ever feel guilty about all this?" I thought about it for a moment, then shook my head. I felt guilty when I was being taken for granted and didn't know how to stop it. Now I feel like I'm finally being fair to myself for the first time in years. She nodded and raised her soda can in a mock toast. To being fair to yourself, I clinked my can against hers, and for the first time in years I didn't feel like a bad son or a selfish person. I felt like someone who had finally learned to set boundaries and stick to them. And that felt infinitely better than any fake apology or empty thank you they could have ever given me. That night, lying in bed, I got an idea that had been brewing in the back of my mind for weeks. The next morning, I emailed our internal communications lead and said I wanted to start a mentorship program within the company. Something low-key but meaningful. A way for young professionals, especially ones who came from complicated or dysfunctional family situations, to get real guidance, support, and most importantly, a professional network that doesn't guilt them into financial obedience. We launched the pilot program 4 weeks later and called it Foundations. Simple name, but it carried a big message about building something solid from the ground up. We got 22 signups in the first week alone. 2 of them were employees I'd worked with for over a year, and I had no idea they were carrying that kind of emotional weight from their families. One guy told me during our first group meeting, "I never thought someone like you would actually understand what this feels like." That comment hit me harder than anything my parents had ever said to me because it made me realize something important. I'm not some dramatic sob story with a perfect redemption arc. I didn't grow up in foster care or survive extreme trauma. But I did grow up in a house where being successful meant more was expected from you, not less. Where love came with terms and conditions and fine print. Where helping family wasn't really helping. It was paying rent for affection you had already earned just by existing. And that's where I am now. I'm running a company that actually means something to me. Not just because of the money or the professional success, but because it's proof that you can build something real and meaningful without compromising who you are or what you believe in. I've got a team that respects me for the work I do and the leadership I provide, not for the checks I'm willing to write to keep people happy. I've got Jessica, who's been more of a real family member to me than my actual family ever was. And most importantly, I've got peace. Real, genuine peace. Not the kind that comes with conditions attached or strings that can be pulled whenever someone needs something. The mentorship program is growing steadily. We're helping people who grew up in situations similar to mine. People who were taught from an early age that their worth was measured entirely by what they could provide for others, not by who they were as human beings. Every success story that comes out of the program, every person who learns to set healthy boundaries, every young professional who realizes they don't owe their family their entire paycheck just because they're related, makes all of this worthwhile. My parents and Tyler are still out there somewhere, probably telling anyone who will listen about how I changed, how success corrupted me, how I abandoned my family when they needed me most. And you know what? They're right about one thing. I absolutely did change. I stopped accepting being treated like a human ATM machine. I stopped pretending that guilt was the same thing as love. I stopped funding people who saw me as a subscription service instead of as their son and brother. So yeah, that's my story. It's not exactly a fairy tale ending, but it's real, and it's mine, and it belongs to me. For the first time in my adult life, I'm not apologizing for putting my own well-being first. I'm not explaining or justifying why I deserve basic respect. I'm not defending my right to have boundaries and expect them to be honored. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, you don't owe anyone your financial stability just because you happen to share DNA with them. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm, and you definitely don't have to fund parties that you're not even invited to attend. Family is supposed to be about love, support, and mutual respect, not transactions, guilt trips, and emotional manipulation. If your biological family can't provide that, then build your own family. The people you choose to surround yourself with will always create stronger bonds than the ones you're simply assigned by genetics. And if standing up for yourself makes you the villain in their story, then so be it. At least you'll be the hero in your own life story, and that's what actually matters in the end.